Turbo and 2K show.
What is up, 2K crew? It is that time of the week again, and yes, I am rolling solo this week. 2Ks and Mrs. 2Ks are out visiting Santa and getting some dinner tonight, so being ultra festive. So you're just here with me, but you know what? I got a great show planned for you guys and gals as it is. And yeah, first of all, who watched that amazing Bills-Lions game? Holy shit. If that's going to be the Super Bowl, sign me up right now. I mean, stop the season. Forget the playoffs. Give me that game. Give me that game, because that was absolutely awesome. And I will kind of get to that later here in the show. It didn't end kind of the way I was hoping, but you know what? Josh Allen is an absolute alien. He is a buzzsaw. He is a wagon. That team is hitting on all cylinders, as they should, at the right time of the year. So yeah, 2K crew, we're going to be talking about NFL football. I know we've been kind of on the train with a lot of college football, just because we were coming into the first 12-team playoff. The playoff field is set. Excuse me. This is the bye week for the first round of games. So we'll be talking college football next week. I guarantee it. First game kicking off at 8:00 on Friday in South Bend, Indiana. Can't wait. Gonna be a great game. And it's gonna be awesome to be. I mean, if you're anywhere near campus, that's gonna be an awesome time. That is gonna be an absolutely awesome time. Well, folks, let's jump into some news. But before we do that, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me tonight. Oh, if you're joining us over on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, on TikTok, wherever and whenever, thank you for taking time out of your night to join us. And please let me know where you are watching from. And did your team win today? And for those of you that are listening on the audio side, the true OGs, the true 2K crew, whether you have us on at the treadmill or we're joining you on a drive, cannot thank you enough. Go ahead and hit the follow and give us a 5-star rating over on wherever you consume your podcast. So let's start off with some news. Okay, let's start off with some news. I got some cool news. I got some cool news before we jump into the NFL here. But the first one I wanted to get to is this is from College Sports Only over on Twitter. Former Louisville quarterback Teddy Bridgewater retired from the NFL last offseason to take his high school alma mater head coach job. All Teddy Two Gloves did in year one was take a squad that went 4-6 last season and win the Florida Class 3A state title. So kudos to you, Teddy. You were always one of those guys that I really, really look forward to watching. Didn't have a whole lot of flash, a whole lot of pizzazz. But if you did watch him when he was at Louisville, was electric still. And then, just injury after injury, it seemed like he was on the cusp of becoming great in the NFL, only to be kind of injured. So that his pro career was littered with awesomeness, but also littered with a whole lot of injuries. So it's good to see Teddy Two Gloves getting on the right side of things, and hopefully maybe start building the program there in Florida. And who knows where his coaching skills might take him. And I kind of on the lead in on TikTok, I was talking about how I really wanted to wait till 2Ks was here until we kind of talked the Juan Soto deal, as well as the hot stove that is Major League Baseball right now. But I did want to put things in perspective. Okay, this time it was probably a little later than this last year. We were talking about the Shohei Ohtani contract and how insane $700 million was, and how insane all of this, all of that. And then we come to find out, most of that is going to be deferred money. And for Juan Soto and his crew, thank you for, that's a very sarcastic thank you, but thank you for breaking that news while you could have broken it a half an hour earlier, because we could have talked about it last week. But no, I had to do an update video from my couch being like, yo, this is absolutely insane. That's an insane amount of money. And speaking of that, let's kind of put things into perspective here. This is from SportsCenter over on Twitter. The comparison to Juan Soto's history-making contract. He signed a $765 million 15-year deal with the Mets. And if you combine LeBron James and Tom Brady's career salary earnings is $761 million. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. Tom Brady played, I believe it was 22 years in the NFL. LeBron is on year 21, I think. Multiple titles between them. One of them is considered the GOAT. Those two combined didn't make nearly as much money as Juan Soto will make in this one contract. In this one contract. And what's really kind of scary is that the Mets will still be paying Bobby Bonilla when this contract is done. Let that sink in too. They will still be paying Bobby Bonilla and Juan Soto in 15 years from now. And also, I'm 44. In 15 years, I'll be almost 60. And he'll still be playing with the Mets. That is absolutely crazy for me to even comprehend that when I'm almost 60 years old, Juan Soto will still be with the Mets. Hypothetically, I mean, there's the opt-out after 5 years, but still just to kind of put things into perspective, okay? And I'm not saying that, I mean, because a person's worth what someone's willing to pay. And the Mets were like, okay, it was widely reported that he was going to go up to $50 million above and beyond what any other owner was going to. So it was kind of like almost an ultimate, like, okay, the other teams, the other suitors are going to have to find a way to get to Juan Soto without being in the pocketbook, because the Mets already had that covered. Now, we kind of talked about this a little bit leading up to this, and where I kind of speculated where he was going to go. I mean, the Dodgers were rumored, but that really wasn't the case. The Yankees were obviously major players in this, the Blue Jays, as well as the Red Sox. So a lot of AL East teams vying for Mr. Soto's services, but ultimately lands in the NL East, which I will be one of many to say, Mr. Soto, thank you for getting out of the AL East. Thank you for getting out of the AL East, and thank you for leaving the Yankees. Because I was a big Juan Soto fan prior to him being traded to the Yankees, and it was going to be one of those things where if he was going to be a Yankee or a Dodger, I was going to continue to hate him. But now that he's a Met, and that one signing, it's going to be, I'm very curious to see where the Mets go from here. Because they have Pete Alonso still out there. Do they bring him back? And if they do, how much of a contract are they bringing him back to? So are the Mets done spending? I mean, that's a big question. Are the Mets done spending? Because there are a lot of free agents still out there, and Corbin Burns being the one that comes to mind right out the gate. He, especially after Max Fried went and signed with the Yankees, the Mets need pitching as well. So is this, are they done? Are they done? And if they're not, and they do end up getting the likes of Corbin Burns, we're going to be seeing another team that spent $1 billion in the offseason. Now, granted, when we look at the Dodgers, the $700 million to Ohtani, Glasnow, and a couple other trades, that was the offseason last year. And now fast forward to this year, we have Juan Soto at $765, and whatever, it's rumored, 225, 230 for Corbin Burns, somewhere in that neighborhood. So yeah, I mean, we could be talking about back-to-back years of teams spending over $1 billion in just a handful of players and doing it drastically different. And we'll see what the Players Association and everything does about these deferred contracts, because if I'm the Dodgers, I'm doing it until someone tells me I can't. That's if you're in business to win championships, that's what you do. You spend the money, but you figure out how to spend it creatively. Let's put it that way. And that's exactly what that ownership group has done, has spent creatively. So that's, without getting into the nuts and bolts of it. Like I said, I want to save that conversation until 2Ks is here. But yeah, it's a lot of money, a lot of money, a lot of years, a lot of money, a lot of years. Well, I had mentioned that this coming Friday, 8 p.m., Notre Dame faces off against Indiana in the first ever 12-team football playoff, the first home the home playoff game for anyone. And where does this historically set with Notre Dame? Where does this historically set? So I have a couple little tidbits here. And this one is Chuck Freebie Sports over on Twitter. How rare is a Friday college football game in South Bend? The last time the Irish had a home game on a Friday is November 30th, 1900, when they downed Chicago Physicians and Surgeons 5-0 at Carter Field. And another one to follow that up is how rare is it that these games haven't been on, or a home game hasn't been on NBC? Because these games will be on ESPN. This is from Douglas Farmer at @_D Farmer. ESPN broadcasting Indiana versus Notre Dame to open the playoff will be the first time someone besides NBC has broadcast a game from Notre Dame Stadium since 1990. And for those of you keeping track at home, I was 10 years old. I was 10 years old when that happened. But the biggest news came actually down the pike probably about 10 minutes ago. Well, probably about 20 minutes ago now with my 10-minute countdown timer. But this was first reported that I saw by Heather Dinich over on Twitter. Can confirm Marcus Freeman has agreed to a long-term contract extension believed to be a 4-year extension that locks him up for 6 more years, according to a source. And Heather's story has been confirmed by not only ESPN, but a lot of other sources as well. So Marcus Freeman is going to be with the Irish for the foreseeable future. And honestly, I could not be happier. If you remember back during the season, I kind of had my qualms with Coach Freeman. And even leading up to, I want to say it was about the Louisville game. We went through the Northern Illinois game, low light of the season, worst loss, arguably the worst loss of any team in the country. But yet, I'm not going to say it was a good thing, but it definitely was a cementing factor with this team. It definitely gave them the chip on their shoulder, whether that's good or not. But with this constant reminder of, hey, this is how we felt after that game. This is the feeling that we don't want to have. And after that, they ripped off 11 straight wins. 11 straight wins. And there's all these people that say, well, they didn't play anybody. Well, I tell you what, if you look at the bowl eligible teams, Notre Dame, I believe, they're either tied or have more wins against bowl eligible teams than anyone in the top 25. So don't tell me they didn't play anybody. I'm not taking that as an argument. And there's the obvious rumor, of course, with the lackluster performance of Ohio State against Michigan. Of course, we talked about it on this podcast. There's part of the Ohio State faithful that want him out of there. There's the other part that's like, no, we need him here to continue to get the recruiting classes that he does, to continue to keep the players that they have already. So it was kind of a split squad here, 2K Crew, and one of the very hot names on that list, if Ryan Day was to be fired, was Marcus Freeman. And I'm glad that is no longer the case. And there were some rumblings about him going to the NFL. I mean, he even answered those questions during one of his last pressers. It's like, no, I'm here. And having, kind of not the right pedigree of coaches for quite a while, Coach Freeman seems to be made for this job. So I'm glad, which it was kind of a weird situation to hire him to begin with. He was the DC under Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly, like out of nowhere, leaves, goes to LSU, him and his family. And I'll be the first to admit I was kind of crushed. I liked Coach Kelly. I liked what he did. He got us to that number 1 ranking where a lot of the other coaches that preceded him did not. But it was always that big game. It was the big game that he could never win. And we've seen more big wins, wins against ranked opponents in the short amount of time that we've had Coach Freeman here than we had for, I believe they're almost double the wins against ranked opponents that we saw the whole time Brian Kelly was there. And just his attitude, his swagger, he fits in so well, especially if you consider the younger coaches that are there, and Coach Ivy, Coach Shrewsbury. That group are all about the same age, and they're all performing extremely well for their sport. So it's a very exciting time. It's weird to see the kind of the new regime where the old heads are getting out and the new young blood is coming in. But yes, Coach Freeman will be the head coach of the Fighting Irish for the presumable future. So I am ecstatic about that. Absolutely ecstatic. All right. Hold on. Oh, excuse me. That one came out of nowhere. Like the thumbnail said, did we just witness the Super Bowl preview? Did we witness the Super Bowl preview between the Detroit Lions and the Buffalo Bills? And I tell you what, and for those of you that were early on TikTok, if this is what we're going to see in the Super Bowl, sign me up right fucking now. Right now. This game was awesome. This game was absolutely awesome. Now, granted, I was kind of hoping, and I say I was hoping for the Lions to win. However, it's hard not to like both of these teams. It's hard not to root for both of these teams. It's hard not to root for both of these quarterbacks. And they put on one hell of a show. One hell of a show. And 2K Crew, we've all seen stinkers. We've all seen Super Bowl stinkers. We've all seen it. We've all lived through it. Some of them live up to the billing, and some of them are just like, eh. And I think right now, a lot of folks, if you were to tell them Bills Lions Super Bowls, would be absolutely stoked. You want to know why? Because there's not a single Kansas City Chief on either one of the teams. We're not going to see Patrick Mahomes. We're not going to see Travis Kelce. We're not going to be bombarded with Taylor Swift. We're not everything that comes with the Kansas City Chiefs, the baggage, just the greatness, the annoyance because they win all the time. If you're to tell folks right now on December 15th that the Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions would be in the Super Bowl, you'd have 3/4 of the country or more ecstatic because the Kansas City Chiefs are not in the Super Bowl, and you'd get a gigantic fan base in the Detroit Lions fan base that would lose their ever loving mind. The team that's never won the Super Bowl, the team that hadn't won a playoff game in 40 years or some shit, wins their first one last year, messes around, wins a second one, and gets 2 home field playoff games last year. And on top of that, 2K Crew, today, I'll be the first to admit it right now. Those black Detroit Lions unis are the sickest unis going in the NFL. Hands down. Way better than the creamsicle Bucks jerseys, way better than the powder blue Charger jerseys. Those are absolutely sick. Especially the helmets. I absolutely love every inch of that uniform. Absolutely love it. The only thing that would have made this game better is if it were being played right now. And I say that even though I'm sitting here doing this podcast, you're watching along with me. I have a feeling we'd be losing some viewers to this. But the Lions historically, even going back to last year, the only primetime game they had was Thanksgiving. And last year they lost that game. They lost that game. So this game had everything you would want it to have. The only thing that's missing, 2K Crew, is if you are a Lions fan, Jared Goff had way too many passing yards. For both teams that have banged up defenses, especially in the Bills, more or less their secondary is banged up, which is kind of why you saw Goff and St. Brown and Laporta just go nuts. But it might be a little. David Montgomery only had 4 rushing yards. Jahmyr Gibbs had 31. This is kind of the when you think Lions football, you think smash mouth, run the ball, hit you in the face, hit you in the mouth. And by the middle of the third quarter, going into the fourth quarter, their guys are better than you. Their guys are stronger than you. Their guys are going to run you over. And that's when Gibbs and Montgomery, Sonic and Knuckles, they just go off. Now, I understand that for the vast majority, for the entirety of this game, the Lions were losing. I get that. It was 21-14 at half. It's not like they were getting blown out. However, at the Bills scored 14 in the third quarter. Lions only score 7. But let's take a peek. Let's take a peek at these box scores, because 2K Crew, this is awesome. This is awesome. Josh Allen, 23 of 34, 362 yards, two touchdown passes, no interceptions. This is coming after a game last week, 2K Crew, where he had 3 rushing touchdowns and 3 passing touchdowns. And I this is the first time a team has scored 40, over 40, and given up over 40 in back-to-back weeks and won the game in like 30 years. And the Bills did not win last week, but yeah, this was an awesome game. Josh Allen also had 11 carries for 68 yards and 2 touchdowns. So instead of 6, he had 4 today. He only had 4. So if you had him in your fantasy, it's a good time to have him because it's playoff time. But yeah, 362, 2 passing touchdowns, 68 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. And there were a bunch of people last week saying that, when you're an MVP candidate like Josh Allen is, when your team loses, you kind of get bumped down a little bit in that MVP voting. No, not when you rush for 3 touchdowns, not when you pass for 3 touchdowns, and then go into Detroit and basically do the same thing. But Jared Goff had an amazing game. 38 for 59, 494, 5 touchdown passes. Let's continue with the good, and then we'll circle back to that. We already talked about the rushing yards. Jared Goff had more rushing yards than David Montgomery. Not going to see that often. St. Brown had 14 catches for 193 yards and a touchdown. Laporta had 7 catches for 111 yards. Gibbs had 5 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown. And Jameson Williams had 3 catches for 37 yards and a touchdown. And Tim Patrick, 4 catches, 30 yards, 1 touchdown. So those are the good stats, 2K Crew. Now we talked about the rushing, okay? And when this team lost, when the Lions lost, I believe it was to the Ravens. They had a very similar line. They passed the ball way more than they ran the ball. And I'm not, and those are 2 very good teams, both in the Ravens and the Bills. 2 very, very good teams. No, it wasn't the Ravens. It was the Bucs. I'm sorry, it was the Bucs. Still, the Bucs were a very good team then. They had, Evans and, a pretty much a whole healthy offense at that point, where now they really don't. But they got away from the run and had to throw the ball. Now, Jared Goff was very, very good at throwing the ball today. You don't throw for 494 yards by mistake. However, when you have to throw the ball almost 60 times, That's not Detroit Lions football. That's not Detroit Lions football. That's no one's eating kneecaps throwing for almost 500 yards. People are eating kneecaps when you're having, 150, 175, 200 yards rushing. That's eating kneecaps. That's Dan Campbell football. And like I said, I understand that the Lions were down pretty much from kickoff through the end of the game. But when you don't, they only had 15 rushing attempts, 2K Crew. 15. To me, that's telling me that you're getting away from your strength and you're expecting a shootout. And to me, that's when Detroit is not it's not the team that they should be. It's not the team that they should be. We got a comment here real quick. B82, not related to NFL, but Notre Dame just extended the Freeman. We talked about that right out the get-go, dude. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. But thanks for chiming in. Love the comments as always. But yeah, to me, this is not Dan Campbell football. And yes, the smash mouth thing is part of it. Yes, the beating up the defensive line is part of it. But controlling Josh Allen on the sideline is an even better weapon. And I'm not going to say I'll be the first one to say that the Buffalo Bills have the best run defense in the NFL because I don't know that. But what I can say is the Detroit Lions had arguably the best offensive line in football. That I do know. And to me, that would be a strength. And maybe that's why I'm sitting here talking on a microphone and not an NFL coach because I don't know shit about fuck when it comes about that stuff. But what I do know is play to your strengths. Play to your strengths. I would have much rather seen Jared Goff throw 30 passes and have 45 rushing attempts. To me, that's Detroit Lions football. Not to say that the Lions can't win in a shootout, but I would much prefer to see them run the ball and do what they do best. Sorry about that. But yeah, to me, I'm not saying that lost them the game because the onside kick that they did to end the game, that was pretty dicey. I mean, they had an absolute chance to recover that. Granted, there was only 12 seconds left, but it's a chance, and we've seen weirder shit happen with Dan Campbell teams. So, I guess to kind of put a bow on the quote-unquote Super Bowl preview, the Lions weren't the Lions, but yet they still had a shot to win this game. I think if they play this game 10 times, I think Buffalo wins 5, Detroit wins 5. I think that's how evenly matched these two teams are. I think that's how good both of these two teams are. And you really can't even say that Josh Allen was the absolute factor that won him this game. Yes, he played amazing. This is Josh Allen's MVP to lose right now. And I don't think there's enough time for him to lose it. I think it is his. And the biggest part of his game that's increased is his lack of turnovers. We've seen him play backyard ball way too many times and just fire the ball down the field, hoping that one of his guys would come up with it. And we've also seen with this Buffalo Bills team that, yes, they drafted Keon Coleman. They did. But they also let Stephon Diggs walk. And they did trade with Kansas City so they could take Xavier Worthy. They did do that. But this seems to be the best Buffalo Bills team that Josh Allen's ever been on. So maybe the whole addition by subtraction is real. I do believe it is. I really do. And it's his MVP to win. I ultimately think that the Buffalo Bills will be the number 1 team in the AFC. They have a little bit easier schedule coming down the road as compared to the Chiefs. And when the Chiefs are winning with their third or fourth string kicker, something's got to give. Something's got to give. So this Bills team's for real. This Lions team has nothing to scoff at. There was just two great teams. Put it this way, two great offenses. Because when you score 90 points in an NFL game, there's not a whole lot of defense being played. But this was the highest scoring game in the NFL this season, which was set last week with the Bills and Rams, and there was more points in this game. So if we get this type of firepower, this type of offense, this type of scoring in the Super Bowl, sign me the fuck up. I'm ready. Shut the season down right now. Let these two teams play in the Super Bowl right now. I'm game. Who's with me? I'm just kidding. There's a lot of football being left to be played, but still, this game was absolutely awesome. And like I said, if we could take two, if we get the second version of this in the playoffs, yes, huge fan of that. Huge fan of that. Well, I know my graphic says week 14 recap, but it's actually week 15. And I realized that about 2 minutes before we went live, and it was too late to fix it. So just in your imagination, it says week 15, not week 14. That says week 15. That says week 15. Speaking of the Chiefs, they go to Cleveland, win 21-7. Mahomes goes down with an ankle. I have to admit, I did not see the severity of it. I didn't get to watch any of this game. But Carson Wentz had to come in, which is never a good sign for Chiefs fans. But this was kind of a lackluster game as far as their offense is concerned. But I think it's, we're going to have to get if the Chiefs continue to win, we're going to have to get used to this version of the Chiefs where they're not going to score 35, 40 points a game. And let's see here. And maybe it's they only had 179 yards passing, had 132 yards rushing. But yeah, just kind of a boring game. Jameis started it through 3 picks, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson, DTR, comes in. He throws a pick. So I believe Nick Chubb broke his foot in this game as well. So both sides got banged up real quick in this one. But just kind of a clunker. I mean, what more would you expect from the Browns? I mean, they're 3-11 for a reason. But the Chiefs are the Chiefs. They're 13-1, and with that, we'll have the best record in football once again. Let's see here. Bengals at Titans. Bengals get a big win, 37-27. Let's take a peek here at the box. Burrow throws for 271, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. We saw Mason Rudolph and Will Levis. Again, this is a Titans team that is very bad. But as you can tell, that when they scored 27 points, just goes to show you how bad the Bengals defense is. But if you're a Bengals fan, you got to win out. You got to win out just to keep your playoff hopes alive. And once we're done with the recap, we'll kind of circle back and give you the playoff standings. We've had a bunch of people clinch. So yeah, they have to continue to win. Jamar Chase has another big day, 9 catches, 94 yards. How much longer will he be a Bengal? He'll be a Bengal through at least the end of the season, but would the Bengals front office split up him and Joe Burrow? I mean, even they were electric back at LSU. To me, you got to pay him. He is, at least statistically, the best receiver in the NFL. At least statistically. I think him and Justin Jefferson are on their whole other level, and then there's a big block of, number 2s when you think about it that way. So Joe has a big game, does throw a couple picks, but the Bengals do get a big dub there. Commanders at Saints. Let's see what Jalen did. Or Jaden, excuse me. Getting a lot of hate on that, calling him Jalen instead of Jaden. Jaden goes for 226, two touchdowns, no picks. We saw both Spencer Rattler and Jake Hanner in for New Orleans. This New Orleans team is a dumpster fire. It's a dumpster fire going down quick. Jaden also rushed for 66 yards. Scary Terry had 2 touchdowns and 73 yards receiving. But yeah, not a whole lot, and a game that the Commanders probably should have won by a whole lot more than one. Ravens at Giants. Let's see how Lamar did. Lamar had a big day, if I remember correctly. He sure did. He had more touchdown passes than he did incompletions, which is always a good sign. Always, even if you throw 1 touchdown pass, if you have more touchdown passes than incompletions, that's still a good day. That's a really good day. Lamar goes 21 to 25, 295 touchdown passes. And the murmurings were, thank goodness, because Derrick Henry did not have that great of a day. Henry had 14 carries for 67 yards. So yeah, not the Derrick Henry day that we're used to. But when your team wins 35 to 14, I think you get a little bit of a pass. We saw Tim Boyle and Tommy DeVito split time for the Giants. And again, just a and kudos to Malik Neighbors for having 82 yards and a touchdown from those dudes. But yeah, again, Giants are terrible. They're 2-12 for a reason. And 0-8 at home. 0-8 at home. Let's see here. Cowboys at Patriots. Cowboys win 30 to 14. And if I remember right, this is the first time Carolina was favored in a game in I can't remember how many years. But the Cowboys find a way. Cooper Rush 214 and 214 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. Bryce Young has 219 passing, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Rico Dowdle, big game, 25 carries, 149 yards. If you had Chuba Hubbard in your fantasy team, he had 10 carries for 32 yards. So probably not the game you're hoping for from him in the playoffs. But CeeDee Lamb, 9 catches, 116 yards, and a touchdown. So not saying that this was a get-right game for the Cowboys, but it was a game that they're 6-8 now. They're 6-8. And again, maybe a dumpster fire going forward. I'm not sure, but still don't like what's going on there. Don't like what's going on there. Neither does Micah Parsons. He's pretty much the only stud that hasn't gotten paid out of that crew. So even if they do break you off, would you want to stay? Would you want to stay in that circus if you're Micah Parsons? I know I would. I would not. Get me the hell out of Jerry World. I would take a pay cut to go play somewhere else. I mean, hand up, swear. To me, the Cowboys have more drama, more eyeballs, more everything associated with them than any other team in the NFL, hands down. And it's all, I would say 95% of it is self-inflicted. Starting at the top with Jerry Jones and just his lack of awareness, couth. Was it worth it giving, extending Dak Prescott to make him yet again the highest paid quarterback in NFL history? No, not a chance. Not a chance. So Cowboys fans, and how much longer is Mike McCarthy going to be there? I believe his contract's up at the end of the year. Do you re-sign him? And if you're Mike McCarthy, do you want to re-sign there? Nope. Get me the hell out of there. Get me the hell out of there. Let's take a quick peek here at this Jets-Jags box score, because regardless, both these teams stink. Rodgers goes 289, 3 touchdowns, so almost back-to-back weeks of 300-yard passing from Rodgers. However, Mac Jones goes for 294, 2 tuds and 2 picks. And ironically enough, Aaron Rodgers also led the team in rushing, 6 carries for 45 yards. So get it done, A-Rod. ETN leads the rushing attack with the Jags. 14 carries, 65 yards. Devontae has a huge game, 9 catches, 198 yards and 2 touchdowns. Brian Thomas Jr., one of the diamonds in the rough over there in Jacksonville, 10 catches, 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. So again, neither one of these teams have any sort of playoff aspirations, and I'm almost positive both of them are mathematically eliminated. So it really doesn't matter, but it's always good to see, at least, when you have two teams that are playing like that, playing for pride, playing for the name on the back of the jersey rather than the front, and just still putting respectable tape out. I love it. Dolphins go down over to the Texans, excuse me. Texans come away with a win 20-12. What a low scoring game this was. Tua goes for 196, a touchdown and 3 picks. CJ Stroud 131 and 2 touchdowns. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. Goes for 30, has 1 carry for 35 yards. Joe Mixon has 12 carries for 23 yards. Achane has 12 carries for 41 yards. Mixon has 5 catches for 33 yards. I know Nico had 2 touchdowns. Let's see here. Achane had 7 catches for 35 yards. Tyreek Hill 2 catches for 36 yards. So kind of a bummer all the way around, but has some big playoff implications when it comes to the Texans, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But if you guys and gals are watching along with the Packers Seahawks, Packers are up 14-0 with about 1 minute to go in the first quarter. Let's see here. Colts at Broncos. This was a weird one, 2K crew. This was a weird one. Bo Nix throws 3 picks early on in this game. Only throws for 130 yards, which as a rookie, he's been riding very, very high. He's been playing extremely well. But for whatever reason, this Indianapolis defense was able to get 3 picks. Anthony Richardson goes for 172 yards, no touchdown passes, and 2 interceptions. Jonathan Taylor has 22 carries, 107 yards, no touchdowns, but should have had 1 because he did the old, I'm going to drop the ball before I cross the end zone, which is one of the most boneheaded plays in football history. And one of the easiest to fix. Don't drop the ball. Don't drop the ball. Now, I know in the ultimate scheme of things, 7 more points added to this would not have changed the outcome of it. But still, JT, you've been in the league for too long to be doing this. With the amount of touchdowns you scored in college and now with the Colts, act like you've been there. Which you have. You've been there. So just a boneheaded play all the way around. Colts fall to 6-8. Denver improves to 9-5. Bo Nix leads the way rushing, 8 carries for 23 yards. Pittman Jr. has 58 yards receiving. Sutton has 32 yards and a touchdown. So just an overall weird game. But kudos to Bo Nix and the Broncos for bouncing back, after those 3 picks, to get a big dub there against the Colts. We already talked about Bills, Lions, Eagles, Steelers. I did get to watch most of this game because Dish Network said, you know what, Turb, you're in Michigan, but we're going to show you this game rather than the Lions-Bills game. Thank you, Paramount Plus, for saving the day on that. But Russell Wilson, 128 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Hurts, 290 yards and 2 touchdowns. And maybe that shot from A.J. Brown saying, we need to get this passing game together. This is ridiculous. We need to get this passing game together because we're too good. And Jalen looks like he's scared and he's double clutching. He's holding the ball too long. Maybe that kind of got through to him. Maybe that, and there was a lot. I mean, that caught a lot of press throughout the week, and both of them come out and said, we're buddies. It's all good. It's all good. But maybe that lit a fire under his ass that he needed. 200, almost threw for 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Saquon had a very weird. I don't know if it was an injury or he didn't see a whole lot of time in the end of the second quarter into the third quarter. Only had 19 carries, 65 yards. Najee Harris has 6 carries for 14 yards. Again, like we talked about with the Lions, this Steelers team, and we saw the Eagles rush for 42 times. Steelers ran the ball 17 times. And we see the results from both of those because, like I mentioned, the Lions want to run the ball. Steelers want to run the ball. And when Najee only has 6 carries for 14 yards and had a fumble at a very, very horrible point in the game, that was a the tipping point of this game, because in the first half the Eagles had 2 fumbles of their own. So it is what it is, and Cordell Patterson is huge. I mean, he is on. I'm not sure what type of bulking diet he's on, but man, that dude went when he was with Atlanta, being a running back mostly and a receiver. He wasn't nearly that big. But Calvin Austin had 5 catches, for 65 yards for the Steelers. AJ Brown had 8 catches, 110 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Smith had 11 catches, 109 yards and a touchdown. So yes, this was I'm going to call it a passing get right game against a very stingy Pittsburgh Steelers defense, and a Pittsburgh Steelers defense that saw TJ Watt leave the game with an ankle injury late into that game. I believe, watching Football Night in America, they said it was a low ankle sprain and considered day to day at this point. So T's and P's of TJ, hopefully that is as minor. And I know it's always injuries and surgeries are always minor when they're on somebody else. So hopefully it is just a little ding and it's not anything that's going to be season ending or even missing games at that point. So T's and P's to him. Hopefully he gets back and better than ever. I think we only have a couple other games here. Patriots Cardinals. Let's take a quick box score here. Drake May has another okay game, 202 yards passing, a touchdown and a pick. Kyler has 224, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Ramondre Stevenson, 13 carries, 69 yards. James Conner has a huge day, 16 carries, 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I wish the Cardinals would throw the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. more. He had 6 targets, 2 catches, 32 yards, where Trey McBride had 10 targets, 9 receptions for 87 yards. And I know that coverage kind of dictates that, but when you kind of have like a man-child in Maserati Mav, get him the ball more. Used a first-round pick on him, very high first-round pick. So I would use him more. Bucks take on the Chargers, get a big win in LA. Let's see what Baker did. 288, 4 touchdowns and a pick. Justin Herbert, 195, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Bucky Irving, doesn't get as much love as he should over there in Tampa. 15 carries, 117 yards. Gus Edwards, 8 carries, 23 yards. Again, that's not a very Jim Harbaugh-esque line there. But when you're getting dusted 40-17, can't really run the ball a whole lot there. Mike Evans has a huge game, 9 catches, 159 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ladd McConkey, 5 catches, 58 yards and a touchdown. So yeah, definitely a 8-6. They're very evenly matched as far as records were concerned. But yeah, that was an ass beating. That was an ass beating for sure. Ass beating. Belt to ass. Belt to ass. Let's take a look at the standings here, 2K Crew. Like I mentioned, kind of see who's clinched, what's going on, give you an update. AFC East. Let me make sure I have my... let's see here. Okay, clinched division. Bills have clinched the division. Dolphins are still alive in the playoffs at 6-8. The Jets and Pats have been eliminated. AFC North, the Pittsburgh Steelers still lead that one with a 10-4 record. The Browns have been officially eliminated. Houston Texans lead the AFC South, and I thought I saw that they had at least clinched a playoff spot. Not to say that, which they probably should have clinched the division by now. The Jags and Titans have been eliminated. Kansas City Chiefs have clinched the division with the Raiders being eliminated. The Eagles have clinched a playoff spot, not necessarily the NFC East quite yet, even though that seems rather apparent that that's going to happen. The Giants have been eliminated. The Lions have clinched a playoff spot, but they're only one game up on the Vikings. So they haven't clinched the division yet, and the Bears have been eliminated. And if memory serves me correctly, the Lions and Vikings finished the season out playing each other. So how awesome is that? How awesome is that? NFC South, still hotly contested. Bucks at 8-6. Falcons and Saints are still alive. Carolina has been eliminated. In the NFC West, no one has clinched the division, and everyone is still alive for that division, with the Seattle Seahawks at 8-5, the Rams at 8-6, Cardinals at 7-7, and the 49ers at 6-8. But 2K Crew, these standings don't mean anything. Standings don't mean anything, because like I said, we're getting... I'm willing this. I'm putting this out into the ether, into the atmosphere. We need Bills Lions episode 2. We need this. The rematch. And the only place they're going to rematch is the Super Bowl. So give me that all day, every day. The sport needs it. Even though it would be cool to see the first three-peat, back to back to back. Super Bowl champions, back to back to back. In the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, what I thought was, because if the NFL was going to script something like this, they might as well have went full boner and had them go undefeated and win the third Super Bowl in a row. That just seems like cinematic bullshit if you ask me. So you could do it that way, or you could do it the way that they're, if the NFL is scripted, which I don't believe it is. But if you want to look at it, with that narrative, then they have to make sure that it looks good or looks believable. Well, I think it'd be much cooler if the Chiefs were going to win 3 in a row, let them be undefeated. Let's just give them all the records. Just give them all the records. Fuck it. Why not? And we've seen the Bills have regular season success against the Chiefs. But when it comes to the playoffs, it's a different story. Is this going to be the year where it changes? I sure hope so. I love Josh Allen. I love this Buffalo Bills team. And on the NFC side, the only one if you're a Lions fan, the only team that would really kind of scare me are the Eagles. I believe the Eagles have won 10 straight games. So to see them getting hot and staying hot, and the team no one's talking about in the Minnesota Vikings, which is in the division. How crazy would that be to lead the NFC North pretty much from tape to tape going into week 18 and lose and go from winning the division to a wild card spot? that would be an absolute kick in the dick. That would absolutely be a kick in the dick because at that point, whoever wins the NFC North will have a bye. They're going to be one of the two teams that have a bye. And to lose that bye and have to play in a wild card game, man, that'd be hard to swallow. That'd be hard to swallow as a Lions fan. But then again, just get into the playoffs and anything can happen. But we've seen it. We've seen in the NFL, moreover, that the bye week is more beneficial. Now, as far as the college game's concerned, TBD, because this is the first year. So we shall see how the different coaches approach this. We'll see how how the coaches run their programs and see where it goes from there. But if you are one of the like if you're Clemson coming, I believe it's Clemson, Ohio State, or whoever Ohio State plays, I would have them up here now, practicing in the elements somewhere, because it's just something you can't simulate in a warmer climate. Sure, you can take your building and blast it with AC, but because if you live anywhere near Ohio, South Bend, it's not necessarily the wind, not necessarily the cold that you worry about. It's the wind. And with these weird conditions come weird kicking situations, weird punting situations. To me, that would be a no-brainer. I would find some way to get up to somewhere near where we're playing to at least have a handful of practices in those elements. It just seems kind of simple to me. Seems kind of simple. Well, 2K crew, that's about all I have for you this week. Like I said, next week, 2Ks will be back. We will be talking college football because we'll have the whole first slate, both Friday and Saturday, to go over with you guys and gals, give you our projections as to how, what does the next round look like, where it's going to be played, because we have a revolving door of bowls, the Orange Bowl, those type of Rose Bowl that these games will be played at. So we'll kind of take a peek, see who's playing where. Is travel going to be an issue? I doubt it, but you get it. We'll break everything down for you guys and gals next week. And until then, Jim Rome, we're coming for you.